Welcome to North Chapel on this Sunday, November 16th. My name is Hope Yeager and I'm the service coordinator this morning. If you're visiting today, we welcome you and we invite you to sign the guest book, which is at the back of the sanctuary. We also invite any visitors to stand up and introduce themselves to the congregation if that is something you are interested in doing. Is there anyone visiting today who would like to introduce themselves? I see Tatum and Taylor here for the children's program. Good morning. And here is your reminder to turn off or silence your cell phones and pagers. After the service this morning, there will be coffee hour downstairs in the social hall. There are stairs at the back that way. There are stairs through here. There are large print orders of service and hearing devices also at the back of the sanctuary if that's something that you find a need for. There are many announcements in the order of service also on the church website about what's happening here at North Chapel. I urge you to read those at some point. Joanne has an announcement.
Good morning. In my employment here, as the administrator, I get to meet some very interesting people. And a woman came by on Thursday from WISE, which is the domestic violence and support organization. And she left a lot of information that's really, really interesting and new to me. We sat and talked for quite a long time. And she asked me to offer this to you. It's all on the back table as you leave, to take with you, because we never know who it is we're talking to that might need this information. There's business cards, a big pile of those that you can grab on both tables and just have it in your pocket. Because in this time of the stories about the sexual abuse and the Epstein files, a lot of us are being re-traumatized. It's very hard. And just to have this, just to know that there's somebody at the end of the phone, and there's classes, and there's opportunities to volunteer as well. So please keep that in mind. Thanks.
Good morning. I actually have a short one and then a longer one. So if you remember to bring a check for the wreaths today, I have an envelope and you could give them to me after the service. The wreaths will be delivered on Thursday. So when I agreed to be the person to talk about the pledge drive this Sunday, I immediately thought of Diane and her adaptation of Poe's The Raven for the pledge drive. And so I emailed her and I said, may I use your poem? Would you send it to me? And she said, sure. But she said, I think people are tired of it. We've had it for 2 different Sundays during the pledge drive. And she said, and it won't be the same if I'm delivering it rather than Diane, and I agreed on that. But since I was gone, I didn't have any other creative ideas. But while I was gone, she took it upon herself to do some doodling around with ChatGPT. So she asked ChatGPT to write a Shakespearean sonnet written for the North Chapel, highlighting Joanne as the administrator, Leon as the minister, and Michael as the music director. And here's what she came up with. She first came up with a very serious Shakespearean sonnet, and then she asked it to do a more modern version of a Shakespearean sonnet, and then she said a lighthearted and joyful one. So Marianne Postins a few weeks ago asked Google to find a poem for her opening words, and she came up with a perfect poem, which she later learned was written by ChatGPT, taking pieces from many other poets, and she decided not to read it. I am not going to make that decision, so I'm going to read these 3 sonnets. Sonnet for North Chapel. When hearts seek light where faith and friendship blend, let North Chapel their steadfast harbor be, where kindly souls in common purpose bend to build a home of hope and charity. Fair Joanne tends each task with patient grace, her care a lantern through the week's long tide, and Leon's words like dawn the dark erase, his wisdom leading all who walk beside. Sweet Michael's chords lift prayers upon the air, each hymn a bridge from earth to heaven's gate. Together they weave comfort, pure and rare, and fill each heart with peace to celebrate. So pledge thy hand, thy spirit, thy part, for North Chapel dwells within each faithful heart. And so here is ChatBT said, sure, I'll do a more modern version. He keeps the beauty and rhythm of the original form, but uses warmer, more natural language that would fit beautifully in a pledge drive or a service reading for the North Chapel. So here, number 2, a sonnet for North Chapel. When hearts seek meaning in a restless day, let North Chapel's warm light guide them near, a place where love and purpose find their way, and every soul is welcomed, known, and dear. Joanne's kind care keeps every flame alive. Her steady hands make all things run with grace, and Leon's words help weary hearts revive, his wisdom shining through this sacred space. While Michael's music lifts us to the skies, each note a prayer that carries hope anew. Together, faith and friendship harmonize, and all we dream becomes more bright and true. So pledge with joy your gifts, your voice, your art, for North Chapel's light lives in each faithful heart. So then the light-hearted version called A Mostly Serious Sonnet for the North Chapel. When coffers droop and bills begin to groan, 'tis time, dear friends, to pledge with heart and gold. For faith alone won't heal the chapel stone, nor hymnals print themselves, or lights uphold. Fair Joanne reigns o'er forms and endless lists. Her emails fly like angels through the sky. Sweet Leon preaches truth and sometimes twists a sermon joke that makes the rafters sigh. And Michael's music, oh celestial sound, can make us tear or tap our toes in pews. So pledge, lest silence be the only sound, and Leon starts to sing the weekly news. Give now, kind souls, and keep our joy in play. North Chapel needs you every single day. So thanks to Diane for channeling and bringing her here. So at this point in our pledge drive, we've received about $50,000 in pledges from 24 people. So hope some more of you will pledge. Thank you.
Our worship theme for November is generosity. Generosity is something I aspire to. I'm lucky enough to have incredibly generous friends, relatives, and coworkers. I struggle sometimes to see myself as generous, and I blame Charles Dickens. His story, A Christmas Carol, specifically the 1970 movie titled Scrooge, is something I saw many times as a child. This is the musical version with Albert Finney playing Ebenezer Scrooge. When I was growing up, the local movie theater would play this version of Scrooge as a matinee at the start of Christmas vacation. I would go and meet my friends at the theater. We'd revel in the freedom of vacation and this colorful, song-filled version of the story of Scrooge. The transformation of Ebenezer, thanks to the ghosts who appear to him in the night, amazed me every time. But the story emphasizes generosity as a kind of binary set of choices of being a miserly curmudgeon or a giddy philanthropist. That final scene of Scrooge calling to a boy in the street and throwing down money for him to go buy the fattest goose in the window, that's a hard act to follow. Real life is filled with simpler, steady acts of generosity. One of the things I treasure about this North Chapel community is how often I witness people taking care of each other and taking care of the community through small, simple acts. In this spirit, here is Marge Piercy's poem, To Be of Use. The people I love the best jump into work headfirst, without dallying in the shallows, and swim off with shore strokes almost out of sight. They seem to become natives of that element, the black, sleek heads of seals bouncing like half-submerged balls. I love people who harness themselves an ox to a heavy cart, who pull like water buffalo with massive patience, who strain in the mud and the muck to move things forward, who do what has to be done again and again. I want to be with people who submerge in the task, who go into the fields to harvest and work in a row and pass the bags along, who are not parlor generals and field deserters, but move in a common rhythm when the food must come in or the fire be put out. The work of the world is common as mud. Botched, it smears the hands, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident. Greek amphoras for wine or oil, Hopi vases that held corn, are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, and a person for work that is real. Now we'll have a moment for meditation.
I loved the, I'm not a big tech fan, right? So there was a cartoon about Chat GPT that I won't relate to you now, but I have a negative feeling about, but listening to those sonnets was surprisingly delightful, and it warmed the cockles of my algorithm. So good morning and good Sunday. I hope this new day finds you well. I have mildly injured my back, and my injury has delivered a considerable amount of pain to me that's manifesting in my leg over the past few weeks, but I'm on the mend, and yesterday was my first almost entirely pain-free day, although last night was a bit of a challenge. When my heart is hurting, I sing, I play music, I write poetry, and I pray. When my body is hurting, I pout and I cry and I complain like a 6-year-old boy child. I am not proud of this. When I find my way back to poetry, one of my favorite quotations is this: "We have seen this before, in times of great sorrow, that human compassion will flow from a well that has long run dry." This quote comes from a larger poem by James Taylor, a song actually, A Moment of Maximum Forgiveness. It begins like this: "Down at the end of the barroom, out of sight of the light from the window, with his mind and his whiskey and his body in a folding chair far beyond repair, I enter his vision, and he watches me look from my seat. He makes his decision and he stands to his feet, although it's a long way down. It happened to me, a wonderful sight, only for me and only for you. It happened to be a light shining through from one who was lost and found, just like me and you." This brave man This flawed, gentle, wise, and deeply courageous man, he had so very far to fall, but he risked it anyway. It would have been a risk not to try. He needed so much in his heart and in his soul. He needed so much of forgiveness. He longed so much for forgiveness, but he was brave enough and he was gracious enough not to require this of others. The older man did not demand forgiveness of the younger man before him. He just held his own. And he offered no more and no less than the truth as he understood it. The crazy truth that makes no sense, the tameless truth that does not neatly resolve, that doesn't tie things up in a bow, that doesn't resolve in a messy way, and that doesn't resolve at all, really, except in time's ability to offer us maturity. Maturity is possible, spiritual maturity. It is available to us if we choose it and if we walk the path that is required of us. The poem continues. Old man says, young man, my, you're looking pretty green, like a stranger to this kind of place. Come sit at my table and come look into my face. I've got a story to tell. There was a father and a son, but that was a long time ago. And when the time came to run, I just couldn't say no, and I left them behind. How do you say that to someone? How do you say that to someone that you love? How do you say, I'm sorry, but I have fallen far short of my best? I am flawed, I am imperfect, and I have a wound that has not healed, and I have not been able to shield you from the pain that this wound has caused me. And I can see that I have delivered a measure of my own pain onto you, and I am sorry. I have fallen short of my best. How does one say such a thing? Each to our gift, I suppose. I guess we just find a way. It happened to me, wonderful sight, only for you and only for me. It happened to be a light shining through from one who was lost and found, just like me and you. Somehow, beyond the wound, they found their way back to connection. The song does not say how. That's ours to imagine. To all souls I say good morning. It is good to be together. The theme for the month of November is generosity. Generosity comes from a place of abundance, a place of spiritual abundance. We yearn so much for this. We learn to give the good spirit away. Hope offered the poetry of Marge Piercy earlier. She read To Be of Use, and I am endlessly moved by this poem, particularly by the part at the end, by the part that's dirty, by the part that reaches into the earth and reads, the work of the world is as common as mud. Botched, it smears the hand, crumbles to dust. But the thing worth doing well done has a shape that satisfies, clean and evident, Greek amphoras for wine and oil, Hopi vases that held corn, are put in museums, but you know they were made to be used. The pitcher cries for water to carry, the person for work that is real. We yearn to fulfill our purpose in life, to give all we can from a place of spiritual abundance. We offer our souls to one another, refilling our glasses and quenching our thirst. Speaking of which, we are called, soul level deep, to live lives that are real. And it is this realness of our lives, the reality of our lives, that we all have in such great abundance. Our lives are as common as mud, and that mud changes over time. Time is a desiccant, changing mud to clay, and clay to dirt, and dirt to dust, in the drying cycle, in fall and winter, where we are now, when the earth draws its energy inward and freezes it in a snowy breath beneath our feet. And in time, in months to come, spring and summer, as the earth exhales in mist and rain and garden greens and flowers, dust to dirt and dirt to clay, and clay to mud returning. And in its season, too much mud in this part of Vermont. Too much mud, which is not usually what one means when one speaks of spiritual abundance. It is possible to have too much of a thing that is not so useful. To my taste, mud abundance seems to yield a lesser poetry. When mud sits too thick on the roads, when mud near frozen outside thaws from our boots in freshly cleaned family kitchens, testifying exactly as to where we have placed our feet. Mud abundance is not a blessing, not what it means to be of use. Abundance alone is not generosity. One must find ways to be of use, of holy service, to be of use. This is what the poem is expressing. This is what the words are trying to say. The poem speaks of a mud that is well made, speaks of the common work of the world that affirms life and sustains life. To be of use is to be purposeful, strategic, necessary, nurturing, positive. To be generous is to give abundantly of a mud well made. What mud well made is miraculous. This idea is magnified in more traditionally Christian churches on the first day of Lent, in what is commonly called Ash Wednesday. I thought Ash Wednesday was a fully accepted thing, but I learned that this holiday does not sit well with certain Christian leaders. The Very Reverend Sam Candler, I love that title. It's really the Very Reverend. I didn't know that was a thing. The Very Reverend Sam Candler explains in an article entitled "Remember That You Are Mud." He writes, strong Christian, he says, I regret that our tradition has adopted the title of Ash Wednesday for this day. The holy day is not supposed to be called Ash Wednesday. Our gradual adoption of this title over time is a penitential maneuver of the Middle Ages. Penitence is fine and often necessary, but the power of this day is not about ashes. The power of this day is about dust. The power of this day is dirt. The power of this day is mud. He further explains, the word for the first human being, Adam, comes from Adama, which means ground or earth. So it is that in Genesis 3:19, the Lord declares to Adam, you return to the ground, for out of it you were taken, you are dust, and to dust you shall return. Those are the words that priests repeat as she or he smudges foreheads on this day. Thus, I would rather this day be called Dust Wednesday, or Earth Wednesday, or even Mud Wednesday. God shaped humanity from the dust and the dirt and water too, and molded a mud into a slippery clay, and breathed spirit of life into us. We humans, then, are the result of God's creativity, fertility, and grace. We enjoyed an innocent and equal life with God in the garden. To be generous and to be of use is to give abundantly from the common miracles that we are. To give of the mud, of the clay, of the dirt, the dust, the stardust, golden. So here's my question to you, you common miracles. What does it mean to be generous when we are not at our best? When standing on our own 2 feet means risking too far a fall, and Lord, it's a long way down. when forgiveness is asked of us, or when we are wounded and hurt and are in need of forgiveness. What abundance, what sense of generosity becomes useful in such times, and what sense of thrift, what frugality works against us. Last weekend, I think it was last weekend, a group of Unitarian Universalists from Heartland and Norwich, Montpelier, and Woodstock traveled to Boston by bus for a field trip for a day. Our first stop was Walden Pond, where Henry David Thoreau made his simple encampment on Ralph Waldo Emerson's property. Emerson's land, meaning the land that he wrested from the Nipmuc and the Massachusetts people who lived there prior to colony. Next, we went to Concord to visit the famous Sleepy Hollow, the cemetery where the families of Emerson and Thoreau are buried, along with Louisa May Alcott, who wrote Little Women, and Andrew Carnegie, and William Rockefeller, and Nathaniel Hawthorne, and the artist Daniel Chester French. Do you know that guy? He's the sculptor who carved the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. We walked or took the bus from Sleepy Hollow to First Parish. Bless you, bless you. We walked or took the bus from First Parish in Sleepy Hollow in Concord, a historic church, Unitarian church, that was founded in 1637. William Emerson served as a parish minister for 11 years. That's the grandfather of Waldo Emerson. Dana McLean Greeley ministered there for 16 years after first serving as the first president of the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, that was founded in 1961. His grandniece is one of my dearest friends, by the way. She's been here. Gary Smith served for 23 years, from 1988 till 2011, and during his years, they built the Partner Church program that had exchanges with our Unitarian forebears, our ancestors in Transylvania, where their churches date back to 1568. Yeah. After lunch, we headed over to Harvard Divinity School and then to Mount Auburn Cemetery. There's so much history there, living history, the still living history of the dead. And you can reach right out and touch it. I reached right out and touched the headstone of Henry David Thoreau at Sleepy Hollow. Henry died at the age of 44 in 1862. And I reached out and I touched the stone statue foot of Hosea Ballou at Mount Auburn. Hosea died at 81 years of age in 1852, when Henry David was still in his mid-30s. Hosea Ballou was among the most famous and most influential of the Universalists. He published his famous treatise on atonement in 1805. It was 2 years after he and his family moved to Barnard, Vermont, right here near Silver Lake. His home is still there. Hosea Ballou preached at art churches in Barnard and in Heartland, in Bethel and Bridgewater, and of course he preached right here in Woodstock. His portrait hangs in our library. I wonder if we might consider renaming that library to the Ballou Library, just to be, ostentatious. Anyway, I was moved by all that we did. I felt like a nerd and like some uncool groupie for the whole day, touching headstones and then placing my hand on my heart, which is creepy. And talking to trees in both cemeteries and asking them what they had seen, which is weird, touching the roots that hold us close and dreaming the wings that set us free. I got away with it most of the time, but Joanne caught me a couple of times and called me out a little bit. And I was like, whatever, dude. It was all in good fun. In truth, I could not have been more honored to have shared the whole experience with Polly and with Jack, with Jane and with Joanne. I saw our history again, as if for the first time through their eyes. I learned a whole lot more about Henry David Thoreau, and I realized that I have so much more to learn. I quote Walden all the time, his famous book from 1854, about the time when he retreated into the woods in an effort to live life to the fullest. It was in Walden, of course, that he wrote famously, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life and to see if I could not learn what it had to teach, and not, when I came to die, discover that I had not lived. He wanted to live deep and suck out the marrow of life. He wanted to drive life into the corner and reduce it to its lowest terms. Like no one before him, he went out in search of life's lowest common denominators. And like no one before him, he went out in search of life's highest human values. And I love him for that. Daring and dangerous, he wrote about American slavery. It was the talk of the town in the 1850s. He wrote, "Sometimes I wonder how we can be so frivolous, I may say, as to attend to the gross but somewhat foreign form of servitude called Negro slavery. There are so many keen and subtle masters that enslave both North and South. It is hard to have a Southern overseer. It is worse to have a Northern one. But worst of all, when you are the slave driver of yourself." I never fully understood how daring or how dangerous he was back then, how theologically sexy he is now. What a powerful thing to say, that it is worst of all when one is the slave driver of one's own self. What key, what plan of escape, what brave light mode of freedom, what aspect of spiritual generosity can free the soul from so secret an enslaver as ourselves? So theologically beautiful, so powerful. So as soon as I got back home, I purchased all of his journals. I found an old 2-volume set online. It's coming in the mail. I can't wait to read it. I can't wait to spill coffee on its pages. I can't wait to make overly impassioned posts on social media that will freak out just about all of my Facebook friends. Before we went to Boston, I knew that Henry David Thoreau had gone to jail for just one night. He didn't pay his taxes for 6 years, and they finally arrested him for it, threw him in the slammer. What I didn't fully realize was what was going on at the time. I didn't realize and really know why he went to the woods, what the context was. He went to the woods in 1845, on the 69th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. He went to the woods on the 4th of July in 1845, and he lived in the woods for 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. He left the woods on September 6th in 1847. At this time, the country was deeply conflicted over the issue of slavery, and the Mexican-American War was underway. So Thoreau didn't pay his taxes. He went to jail for a night in July of 1846. During his time in the woods, he was sprung from his cage by friends who paid taxes on his behalf. He benefited from their generosity, but he never relented about why he refused to pay. It was his way of protesting slavery and war. He went to jail to make a point. He went as an act of conscience, and he described his intentions clearly in an essay called Civil Disobedience. He asked, "Must the citizen resign his conscience in legislation? Why has every man a conscience then? I think that we should be men first," he said, "and subjects afterwards. It is not desirable to cultivate respect for the law so much as a respect for the right. The only obligation which I have a right to assume is to do at any time what I think is right," end quote. Do what you think is right. That's something that my parents always said. That's something that they instilled in my sister and I. Thoreau further explained, most legislators, politicians, lawyers, ministers, office holders serve the state chiefly with their heads. And as rarely as they make moral distinctions, they are as likely to serve the devil without intending it as God. Thoreau said, A wise man will only be useful as a man and will never submit to be clay. Thoreau went to jail to make a point. He went to jail as an act of conscience. He went to jail to get free and most of all to be of use, but not as a lump of uninspired clay, molded as readily by the devil as by God, not as uninspired clay, unaware that there is a difference. Uninspired clay is not miraculous. It is not of the ash, is not of the dust, is not of the dirt, is not of the mud that blesses us in good faith. Uninspired clay is forever botched. It is always broken. It is the thing not worth doing well. It is not of use. The poet reminds us that botched, the mud, the common work of the world, smears the hands and crumbles to dust. We are seeing this. Botched, the mud, the common work of the world, is not miraculous and is as likely to serve the devil without intending it as to serve God. We are seeing this. Botched, the mud, the common work of the world, will only choose that which is advantageous, will not choose that which is morally right for its own sake, will make a business of the blessing of the world. It takes courage to become more than lumps of uninspired clay. Are we brave enough to take that journey? That's not a real question. We do not have the option to do otherwise. I often think about a concert that I went to years ago. Bernice Regan Johnson offered a solo performance in Princeton, New Jersey. She is the founder of Sweet Honey in the Rock. She told a story about 1 Corinthians from the Bible. I've shared it with you before. 1 Corinthians is, although I speak in tongues of men and angels, I'm just sounding brass and tinkling cymbals without love. The passage concludes with, where as a child I saw it face to face, now I only know it in part. Fractions in me of faith and hope and love. And of these great three, love is the greatest. So she was quoted that passage. Bernice was quoted that passage and was asked which was the greatest of those three beauties, faith and hope and love. And without hesitation, she responded and said, courage, even though it's not on the list. She said, unless one has courage, one might lack the capacity to practice the other three. So what does courage look like in these days of reckless uncertainty, these days of violence and displacement, these days of hope and possibility against the odds and against the grain? Courage looks like the opposite of reckless uncertainty. It looks like the inverse of violence. Courage feels like returning home under the soft gaze of Lady Liberty. It feels like being moved to hear the words of a woman from the Bronx who pushes back against a sea of troubles, who pushes back against the destructive energies that have been tearing things down by staging troops in western cities and in Memphis and in Chicago, tearing things down with a wrecking ball, by taking a wrecking ball to the East Wing of the White House. Courage sounds like a woman. Courage sounds like a woman who reminded us recently with power and with dignity that the White House belongs to no president, but belongs to the people of the country. She said, I want us to remember and to know that the future, our future, is not determined by one man in a house that was built by enslaved people. Our future will be determined not in a house built by slaves, but in a city built by free men, in a city built by unionists and immigrants and suffragists, the bricks laid by working people past, present, and future, the seamstresses, the unionists who paid for our rights with blood. This city was built by the Irish escaping famine, by the Italians fleeing fascism, by Jews escaping Holocaust, by Black Americans fleeing slavery and Jim Crow, by Latinos seeking a better life, by Native peoples standing up for themselves, by Asian Americans coming together in Queens, in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, in Manhattan, in Staten Island, in this country, in a vision to build the freest and the toughest and the greatest city on earth. And we will not stop now in New York, she said. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez did not go to the woods to live deliberately. She went to the city, and she did the same thing that Thoreau did. She broke free. This is what courage looks like today. Courage looks like the flowering, not the firing, the flowering of one of the bravest experiments in human history. It looks like the clear and present choice, the contemporary choice to live life deliberately, just as Thoreau did, to cleave to the marrow of life, to the blood and bone of it, to the flesh and faith of it, to the flower and the fire and the forgiveness and the freedom of life. It's not so spectacular. It is not rare. It's as common as mud, and it is what we are made of. All of us, without exception. We have seen it before. In times of great sorrow, human compassion will flow from a well that has long run dry. So let's go, Woodstock. May we know this as a blessing soul level deep. May it be so. Blessed be. And amen. We don't let it be taken from us, this bravest fire. We don't let it be taken from us. We don't cower even though we're scared in our loneliness. We express our passions to the world and gather around us the spirits that we need. All around us, as common as mud, is the miracle that we need. Look around you, you'll see it in each other's eyes. I'm doubtless about this. Take that spirit with you. Be well.